Hi, we're here with Allan Baker again today, the author of the new book BLIS for Insomniacs, a new technique for helping people get to sleep. Now, Allan, we obviously agree that there's a lot of people out there that are probably looking at the video now and thinking that they've spent a great deal of money on other sleep help aids, be it books, apps, or so on. And there's a lot of advice out there in the sleep industry as to how you should aid yourself to get to sleep. Now, you mentioned in the book that certainly some of the aspects, while they're helpful, they don't necessarily provide a balanced solution. And you mentioned the three-legged sleep stool. Can you just give us a little bit of a background on this and what the three legs of the stool are and why you think you need all three in order to be able to easily get yourself to sleep?
Well, it turns out that the most plausible, certainly for me, model of that can account for what's going on when we make that transition from consciousness being awake to being asleep requires three separate but interdependent factors. These have actually been known for some time, but have never really been integrated, I think, that well into sleep therapies. The three legs of the stool are those, firstly, that deal with a thing we call modulation. And really that's the neurochemical state of the brain in consciousness and during sleep. Most sleep hygiene advice is around manipulating usually by attempting to get rid of all of the neurochemicals that promote wakefulness to leave a dominance of those that promote sleepiness. That's the first leg of the sleep stool. The second leg is to do with the shift that happens when we move from wakefulness to sleepfulness, and that is a shift in our mental activity from things external to us to things which are exclusively internal to us. That sounds a bit strange to start with, but I couch it in terms of the need for safety and its correlate, which is vigilance. Now clearly, if we need to be awake because there are threatening things in our environment, then we're focused on those external things. And we call that the E aspect. But when all those threats go away, we can be content with our own thoughts, or at least concentrate on our own thoughts, which are entirely internal. And the therapies that fit around what are called cognitive behaviour therapies are largely around attempts to influence our state of thinking and our emotional state, so that it becomes compatible with being asleep rather than being awake. It actually turns out that's easier said than done. Thought control is actually very, very difficult. I provide several methods for doing that in connection with the third leg of the stool, which to me is the most important, but it's been the most ignored, and that's called activation, and that's the state of gross electrical activity that the brain is able to emit, or it goes into, we can measure, where it shifts from a fairly high frequency state, which is known as alpha waves, into a slow wave or delta sleep. It's interesting that it's been ignored largely for the reason that in this little story I'll give you, this particular person ignores the right place to look for their car keys. Now bear with me. This is a story about a driver who at night time drops his keys, and he's hunting around on all fours in the gutter, on the pavement, looking for these damn keys. And a passerby comes by and says to him, "Why are you looking there?" And he says, "Well, it's obvious. It's where the light from the street lamp is." Now, I like to tell that little story because it indicates to me why we haven't made progress in helping people get to sleep by using the third leg of the stool, which is to control activation. We simply haven't had any techniques that respond to this third leg of the stool, activation. But I think we have now. And this is the breakthrough, and that's why I'm so excited about it. I'm excited because for the first time in my life, I know that if I'm awake at 3 a.m, maybe the cat's woken me up, who knows? Maybe I've woken up spontaneously. Of course, we do that. Most of the time we wake up and we go back to sleep and we have no memory of actually being awake, so we think we slept through the night, but we really haven't. But I now know that I can say to myself, well, I want to spend half an hour in active thought now, but knowing at 3:30 I'm going to practice this technique, and I know that I'll bring on sleep within 4 to 5 minutes of engaging with it. So I've shifted from being a passive person who is grateful for when sleep comes along to someone who can actually bring it on at will when I want it. And I want to share that with a couple of million people out there as well.
Well, yeah, I have to say that sounds pretty fantastic, and I would say there are a lot of people out there that will be very interested in that. So yeah, if you're interested in this, take a look at the book, learn the technique, practice it, and hopefully people will get a lot more sleep.
I certainly hope so, yeah.